Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and oh boy, we're really getting ourselves into some weird shit. So if you look at the number that I am at 169. So a long time ago, at episode 69, I took a look at a Mega Drive game called Divine Ceiling, and it just happened to be a shoot 'em up, and whenever you complete levels, you get very erotic scenes, and guess what? The game was fucking assy as fuck! So to celebrate this 169, I'm gonna do something special, and that happens to be Hentai fighting games on the PC-98. Oh man, where can I start? So far, I have reviewed 2 PC-98 games, and they were action platformers, but I haven't done one on a fighting game yet, and out of all the fighting games that I've seen on the PC-98, only one of them did not have any adult content. So I'm going to be taking a look at 3 random fighting games, and turning porn into a fighting game could either lead to 2 things. It could either lead to being one of the greatest things since underwear, or it could lead to a total disaster such as a tornado passing through a sewage plant shooting out diarrhea. And no one, and I mean no one, wants to be a part of that, unless that's your kink or whatever, you fucking weirdo. Oh yeah, and one thing I should mention before we begin is that I'm actually going to be censoring the bad parts only because I have a feeling that community guidelines probably won't like some of this shit, so I'd rather just be safe than sorry. So if you're going to be watching this video just for fapping material, just look it up on Google or something. So now, let the 69ing begin. So the first one I'm going to start off here is actually going to be on a series of games, but I'm only going to take a look at the first one, and that happens to be Variable Geo. So the game was developed and published by Giga, and it was released in 1993, and only on the PC-98. And like I said about the game being a series, it has had some sequels and updated versions on many different platforms, but like I said, I'm only going to take a look at this one. And besides, later on in the series, they ended up dropping the hentai shit. But they still had a lot of fan service, but not to this extent. So there's only arcade mode and versus mode. It really is that simple. And same thing goes for the story. All it literally is about a bunch of waitresses taking part in a fighting tournament trying to gain more customers. That's literally it. And just as an interesting factoid is that one of the restaurants in this game is actually based after a real restaurant, and that happened to be Hannah Miller's. So, if you happen to go to Japan one of these days and you happen to go to that restaurant, tell them that I sent you there, and then the people working there will be like, "What the hell are you guys talking about? I don't remember no Maple Leaf sucker." Okay, back on track. So, this game only has 6 playable characters. And when you pick one, you just gotta beat up the rest of them. So this game has 2 rounds, and every time you win a round, you actually get a suggestive scene. And when you win the match, then you get another one, but this one is even more so. So when it comes to the story, I have no idea why they just stripped down. But when it comes to game design, yeah, we all know why they did it. So when it comes to the moves, you only have 2 buttons, a punch and a kick. And of course, there are special moves and throws that you get to learn with each character. Sounds simple enough. If anything, a game like this could have probably worked on like the NES or even the Game Boy. So now, when it comes to the game's controls, they are very unresponsive. So most of the time, whenever I try and punch and kick things, I have to press the button like multiple times just to try and get it to register properly. Also, the moving and jumping and all that, it just feels really janky. And trying to pull off the special moves in this game is just ridiculously hard. But really, they're not really worth doing because I just kicked everyone in the face a bunch of times and it ended up working out fine. So yeah, it's one of those games that almost feels like the Master System version of Street Fighter 2, the one that was only in Brazil. So that's pretty horrific. Yeah, I had to go there. But anyways, now let's get moving on to the other things like the graphics. And the graphics for this game are kind of a mixed bag. So let's talk about the good. So I have to say, the title screen looks really nice, and also the character select screen looks nice, and I also like the character portraits, they all look really good. The little animation sequence before you fight the battle also looks really good. Now as for the stages, while they are nice, bright, and colorful, I do feel that it definitely isn't the greatest looking PC-98 game. I've seen a lot better. Like Tatsugeki Mix and Rusty looked way better, but this isn't terrible looking. But as for the character sprites in-game, yeah, unfortunately they don't look nearly as good as they did on the title select screen. and the animations are pretty lackluster as well. And as for your favorite hentai moments, well, yeah, there is a lot of detail put into them. I guess that's where all the budget went into. So yeah, there are some good things about this game visually, but overall, it's definitely not the best looking PC-98 game, but it's also not the worst either. Trust me, I've actually seen a game that looked almost like an MS Paint game. It just looked awful. Now as for the game's music, thankfully this is something that does not disappoint, for that the music in this game is pretty fucking great. I pretty much like most of the songs within this game. I really can't think of a bad song, for that a lot of them are really catchy, very upbeat, and well, I just really like the sound chip on the PC-98, and well, yeah, this part just really doesn't disappoint at all. Highly recommend listening to the OST. So now, as for my overall thoughts on the original Variable Geo, all I gotta say is that it's a pretty rough start to this series, because this game is pretty crap. So not only is the game very bare bones, but also the response timing is just as bad as trying to stick your dick in a light socket. So if you feel the need of wanting to play a fighting game where you play as a waitress beating the shit out of other waitresses, I just say stick to either PS1 or Saturn versions of Advanced Variable Geo, because those ones are actually pretty solid. And believe it or not, there's actually another one that was also exclusive to the PC-98, and that happened to be Variable Geo 2, The Bout of the Cabalistic Goddess, but unfortunately I couldn't get it to work properly, so I had to skip on that one. But yeah, the original Variable Geo is just a very rough start, and I'm kind of surprised that this series actually got at least some sort of following to get more sequels, but hey, at least they improved it over time. So the next PC-98 fighting game we're going to be taking a look at is Jakuou Sasasken Hayate. I probably fucked it up, but honestly, I really don't care. And this one was developed and published by Altalcia and released in 1994. So in this game, there's really no other modes in this game. It's just a story mode, and there is an exercise mode, but you have to access it within the extra option, which is kind of weird. And within this story mode, you can't pick any other character. You have to pick the generic looking Hayate. And he just happens to look like Ryo from Shenmue, but just with a really stupid looking face. And believe it or not, I do know a little bit about the story here. So apparently, after a world war, Earth has joined forces with a computer known as Juno. And every 4 years, the computer ends up making some tournaments, and of course, all the tournaments have some really weird rules where, of course, the female fighters happen to, you know, have sex with the winner. I'm not sure why I sounded like William Shatner right there, but I suppose that anyone would after trying to re-explaining this shit. Well, it's completely forgettable, so moving right along. As for the gameplay, so in the fights, there's only one round, and when you win, you just move on to the next one. Easy as that. And when I mean easy, I actually mean fucking bullshit. Yeah, this is another one of those fighting games where it starts out way too hard. And I'll talk more about that much later. So now, when it comes to the game's controls, oh god, man, like, believe it or not, the controls are even worse. The only good thing I can say about them is that at least this game has more than 2 buttons. It actually has 4. But sadly, that doesn't make it better because everything else is just pure garbage. So just like Variable Geo, it's very unresponsive. And the hit detection is just all over the place. I don't even fucking know where to begin. And as for the special moves, they just happen whenever they want to. And on top of all this bullshit, the first boss is like ridiculously hard. Honestly, if I didn't have as much patience as I do, I probably would have given up on the first stage. But I did manage to persevere, and it took me like 30 minutes. And I'm pretty sure some people are thinking, oh, it's the Dark Souls of fighting games. Well, maybe it would be if Dark Souls didn't have any rewarding factor. But anyways, there's really nothing more I need to say about the controls. They're just really fucking awful. So now, as for the game's graphics, yeah, this one is very underwhelming. Now, the cutscene graphics are okay at best, but everything else is just really bland and not memorable. In fact, if you manage to beat the first stage and you get to the other stages, all the stages just look the same. Only difference is that it'll have Hayate versus so-and-so. Yeah, you even get to fight a weird looking monster thing which also looks like crap, and it happens to be named Robert. Wow. Although I have to laugh at Hayate's face at the game over screen. It looks so fucking derpy, it just makes me laugh. But at the same time, it also scars an image in my face because I've seen it so many goddamn times. But yeah, for PC-98 standards, this one is just not really good. Still looks better than that MS Paint looking shit game, but it's not by much. And as for the game's music, first of all I have to mention, I couldn't even find it on YouTube or any other website, but even if I did, honestly, it's very forgettable. I don't even remember what it sounds like, and I just got done finishing the game because I was just so fed up with it. So there's really nothing much I get to add there, but now, as for my overall thoughts, well, I think we all know, this game is a fucking piece of shit! But not only that, but this game actually gets even worse than what I already explained. So after taking forever on beating the first stage, I managed to beat through some of the other stages much easier doing them in one try, although I almost died like a couple times. But once I hit game over at this giant robot named Musashi, and yeah, why the fuck would I be fighting a robot? Of course I'd get my ass kicked. And after I got a game over, I found out that you have to start all the way back at the beginning. Yeah, you don't get any continues in this game. How the fuck are you supposed to beat this game in one try? Now that is some shit fighter shit that I've ever seen. But thankfully, at least they restore your health after every fight, so it's not completely like Shit Fighter, but pretty damn close. And at the main menu, you see a load option, and when you click on it, well, nothing happened. So how the hell am I supposed to save my game in this game? Because out of all the cutscenes that I've seen in this game, well, after beating fights, I've never seen like a yes or no option to save your game. So, like what, can you only do it at like certain times? And I happen to not get far enough to get to a checkpoint? This has got to be one of the biggest piss-offs in gaming history. And it is easily one of the worst fighting games I ever played. Yeah, I'm putting it up there with games like Shit Fighter and Hokuto no Ken 7. It really is that fucking bad. And would you believe me that this piece of turd actually got a sequel? Yeah, well, I'm not reviewing that one today because this is enough shit I gotta deal with. So overall, fuck this game, fuck the people that made it, they're a bunch of ass cocks. And lastly, fuck the hentai scenes, they don't even look good, so this game even fails at being jerk-off material. And finally, at long last, just one more game I'm taking a look at, and I swear to God, I hope there is no part 2 to this. So the final hentai fighting game I'm going to be taking a look at is Valkyrie the Power Beauties. So before we had Dark Rose Valkyrie or the Valkyrie Profile games, we had Valkyrie the Power Beauties. Man, what a fucked up quadrilogy. So this one was released in 1995 and it was developed and published by Discovery. Yeah, we really did discover some real hidden gems, didn't we? So this one actually has a typical arcade mode that also has a 2-player mode, and it also has a story mode. So the standard arcade mode doesn't have any of the hentai cutscenes, so if you do want to play this game and keep it somewhat PG, you can always just play that mode. But I gotta talk about the story. So, you play as a high school student named Hatsumi. And one day he is visited by a talking cat, and apparently this cat is actually not a cat, it's actually an alien that came from a magical world. And apparently every 1,000 years, his world ends up having a fighting competition where they take a bunch of females and whoever wins becomes the next queen of that world. And this is where I just have to stop and just say, okay, am I playing a fighting game or did I just like drop a hit of acid before I turned on this game? Because really, it's just stupid, and dumb, and unintelligent. So yeah, the story mode, it plays like a visual novel where you actually pick different choices, and because this game hasn't had a fan translation yet, I have no idea what the fuck's going on. But I really don't care about that, because I came here to kick some ass. So you start off with 6 playable characters, but there is one unlockable one. So yeah, the fact that this game has unlockable content is at least somewhat advanced. So this one goes back to having 2 attack buttons, but one thing I gotta admit that I'm actually pretty impressed by is that there's a few mechanics in this game that were very uncommon for 1995 for fighters. So you can air block, you can double jump, and you can even execute desperation skills. Which that alone is already way better than the other 2 that I looked at. But now, let's start talking about the game's controls. So, are they better than the other 2? Yes, they are. They are actually decently okay. So the response time on them is actually a lot better this time. Doing the special attacks and projectiles are actually a lot easier to pull off. And overall, it really just feels okay. Not great, but a hell of a lot better than what we had before. Because this game still suffers from choppy animation, but the thing is, it's at least a lot more manageable this time. So I'm actually kind of shocked that I'm not, like, talking shit about the controls here, because I gotta say, they're actually okay. Not great, but at least very playable. So now, as for the other things, like the graphics, graphically, this game looks really great. Everything is really bright and colorful. I really love the backgrounds in this game. And the characters all look really well detailed, not only in the character select screen, but also the sprites themselves all look really good. The only complaint I will say about the graphics, and well, I kind of already mentioned it before, but the animation on them is just, like I said, it's a little choppy. But other than that, I do find that this game is actually the nicest looking one that I've taken a look at today. And the music, as again, is really damn good. In fact, I'd say that it's even better than Variable Geo's. And it has a really nice variety of music too, so as again, I can highly recommend listening to the music. In fact, I'd actually say it's just as good as Rusty's soundtrack. Not quite as good, but pretty close. So you guys are probably wondering why I never bothered to mention the if you wanted to buy this game section. Well, the thing is, I couldn't find like anything on any of these games, so I have no idea what they would go for, but I would imagine they are pretty expensive and very hard to find, just like most PC-98 games. But now, as for my overall thoughts on Valkyrie the Power Beauties, is that despite all its efforts, it's still not a great game, but I can at least say that it is very playable. And out of all the fighting games that I've played on the PC-98, which is not very many, I can say that it is the best one. And that also includes graphics, music, and gameplay. So obviously, compared to a lot of other fighting games that were very popular, you know, ones like Street Fighter or Fatal Fury and all that stuff, well, no shit, this game is not nearly as good as those. But for PC-98 standards, I can at least say that it's decent and competent. If I can compare this game with another fighting game in terms of quality, I'd say it's a lot like Kart Fighter on the Famicom, which was a fighting game that uses a bunch of Mario characters and it was made in Hong Kong. So just like that game, as a fighting game, they're not really like the greatest fighters ever, but given what they were released on, they were controlled a lot better than a lot of other Drek. So as I already said, not great, but not bad. But still tough to recommend this game because, well, it's just so fucking wacko. But as I said, if you don't like any of the hentai stuff, you can just not do the story mode and just do like regular arcade runs. And I like that better anyways because it's more quick and to the point rather than having to go through like a bajillion dialogue text that I can't read. And I'm pretty sure if I could read it, it would probably make me dumber. So there you have it, guys. There are some hentai fighting games on the PC-98, in case you're wondering about them, which you probably weren't, because, you know, who the fuck thinks up of these things? So we got one that was below average, but somehow made a series of itself. And then we got another one that was just diabolical AIDS. And lastly, one that was generously decent. So yeah, if I ever do another PC-98 review, it's not gonna be a hentai game, I promise. But I figured I might as well make something ridiculous out of a number 69 review, so with that said guys, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a good day.
Dirty, fucking, scum-sucking, lousy cunts. Stick your pinky up my asshole, please.